Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I'm here today with Dr. Tom O'Brien. Dr. Tom O'Brien, DCCCN, DACBN, is an internationally recognized speaker focused on food sensitivities, environmental toxins, and the development of autoimmune diseases. Dr. O'Brien is considered a Sherlock Holmes for chronic disease and holds teaching faculty positions with the Institute for Functional Medicine and the National University of Health Sciences. He is the author of You Can Fix Your Brain and The Autoimmune Fix. This was so good today. We talked about how toxins impact children's health and development, how to reduce exposure to environmental toxins at home, long-term health implications of early exposure to toxins, common misconceptions about environmental toxins and health, his approach to address how we could get some of these toxins that we may not recognize out of our home, what inspired him to be into this type of environmental medicine. He shared success stories on how somebody overcame MS by reducing their toxic exposure. He talked all about this docu-series that he did where 118,000 people attended. And then his friends like Dr. Mark Hyman and all of these people, Mark Furman, all these people that are so big in the health space were like, how did you do this? And so he is giving away a free docu-series all about the topics that I didn't even bring up yet, like leaky gut and our microbiome, how it's like the number one thing, the gut health and the microbiome to predict your health. We went all about inflammation, chronic inflammation, autoimmune diseases. This was the podcast to listen to today. If you are a person that's all about getting healthy, being healthy, staying healthy, and living healthy. So without further ado, this was a treat. We divided it in two parts. This is part one today. I could listen to Dr. Tom every day. It was so good. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm excited to welcome Dr. Tom O'Brien back to the Sisterhood of Sweat.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, I really enjoyed just talking to Dr. Tom before we started the podcast. So this promises to be, for some, life-changing and definitely a treat. So I'm excited to just talk to you today about what you were telling me you're so passionate about. And I would love for you to tell the audience some of what you were telling me before we began.
Sure, with pleasure. I had just completed an interview a few minutes before ours began, because we're doing an event that comes up in a few weeks that we'll talk about. And I wanted to re-interview this person. I've done two events in my life like this. The first one called the Gluten Summit. And it was free online. This was back in 2013. And we had 118,000 people attend. And it was the first online health summit ever. And the result was many of my friends called and said, how did you do that? What did you do? And I said, I don't know. We just made it up. And they asked if they could talk to my team, and of course, and my team said, your friends all want to do summits and we should start a company. And I said, no, it's not my thing, man, but you guys go ahead with my blessing. And they started the company Health Talks Online, which has hosted more than 90% of all of the online summits in the last 11 years. Thyroid summits, brain summits, detox summits. Tens of millions have been helped by that. And I'm really proud of that. And in 2016, I did an event called Betrayal, the autoimmune disease solution they're not telling you. And both the Gluten Summit and Betrayal are available for free to watch. And they're game-changing. And they're both available on my website, thedr.com. That's my website, thedoctor.com. Just don't spell the word doctor out, thedr.com. And in Betrayal, what you'll see in the initial introductory trailer is my interview with a woman in London who had reversed her multiple sclerosis. And you see a picture of her a few years before in a wheelchair. She can't walk. And the MRIs, you see 8 lesions on the brain. We put the arrows so you can see what we're looking at. And then you see her today when I interviewed her, and she has 2 lesions left on her brain, and she has no symptoms whatsoever. And neurologists say that's impossible. You can't reverse lesions on the brain. Well, here it is, man. Here it is. And we've got a number of studies showing that, well-published studies on reversing lesions in the brain on a gluten-free diet, if that's the trigger that contributed to the lesions getting there in the first place. And a lesion is crud in your brain. It just shows up like an X-ray, but it's crud in your brain that's not supposed to be there. So anyway, I interviewed this woman who had reversed her MS at the time. And, you know, it's heart-grabbing because she said, you know, I took the tube to come here today. That's the train in London. And it's a 7-block walk from the station to the hotel where we are now. And I walked, and she said, it's not a big deal. And then she got tears in her eyes and said, but it is. And then we show you a picture of her in a wheelchair, and she can't walk. And she completely reversed her autoimmune disease, multiple sclerosis. So I wanted to interview her now. We are now 8 years later. And I wanted to see, is she still okay? You know, and what's it like now for her? Does she get flare-ups? And I just had the most beautiful talk with her before you and I connected here. And she's completely symptom-free. And she said so many pearls that will be in our event. But one of them I thought I'd share here. When we were done, I was about to thank her. And I said, is there anything else that you would like to say to the hundreds of thousands of people that will be listening to this? And she said, well, yes. She said, what changed everything for me was that I realized I'm not multiple sclerosis. It's not part of me. It's something I have, like red hair. Well, I had multiple sclerosis. So, you know, people would say, how's your multiple sclerosis? You'd say, I don't have multiple sclerosis. How is the multiple sclerosis? And it's a subtle little thing, but it makes a big difference in how you look at your health. Are you this disease, or are you a person that has a disease right now? It makes a difference, because every decision you make, and she talked in great detail about how important it was to get the toxins out of her life. And that meant the foods that weren't good for her, but also, she said, even more important, the relationships that are toxic relationships.
I already knew.
Yeah,
I'm
of course.
perceptive that way.
Yes, great.
Get the toxins out.
Yeah. Hang out with toxic people and you become toxic. You just feel toxic. You think toxic thoughts. And, you know, it's not airy-fairy. There's a lot of science to it. But it was such a profound message. And I just came off that interview with her before coming on with you. And that's what we were talking about before we turned on the record button here.
Well, I love all of that. And you definitely answered the question I was going to ask. So we were talking about inflammation, and I will say I had my own journey with that. And what I recognized, because I was ripping everything from the pelvis with bone fragments, pretty much my hamstring, my other hamstring, my groin. And what I recognized was my cortisol was through the roof. I was under some toxic stress, we'll say, and I recognized that my body was breaking down. And what I knew at that point was I needed to start building it up. And
Mm,
how could I do that? How could I fortify it? How could I reverse inflammation, which we're going to get into the inflammation because it was inflamed. And
yes.
so my story equally is a good story. I ended up being able to come back from all of that and win a championship at 60 years old that I didn't win in my younger years and in what I would thought was my best shape. So
Yeah.
it is possible, and you do have to think about what your body signals. What your body is signaling you is a signal, and then you just have to then pay attention to that. And so let's dive into inflammation and how it is one of the number one killers.
Oh, you know, many marketing pieces out there, and some doctors will talk about the root cause of disease, and there is no root cause. There are many causes to dysfunction and disease. There's one root mechanism, and nobody talks about that. And that's why we're doing this event, because the Center for Disease Control tells us that 14 of the 15 top causes of death in the world today are chronic inflammatory diseases. It's always inflammation, except for unintentional injuries, accidents. Everything else, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cognitive decline, Parkinson's, rheumatoid, MS, skin lesions, psoriasis, arthritis, it doesn't matter. They're all inflammatory diseases. So we have to look at, well, what is this thing, inflammation? Mrs. Patient, if you pull at a chain, it always breaks at the weakest link. It's at one end, the middle, your other end is your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys. Wherever your weak link is, that's where the chain's going to break if you pull too hard. Inflammation is the pull on the chain. So your weak link is determined by two things. It's determined by your genetics, and it's a geek word, your antecedents, which means how you live your life. If you eat tuna fish a couple times a week, every week, you likely have mercury toxicity because almost all the tuna's got mercury in it. That's an antecedent. And mercury accumulates in specific tissues like your brain. So your brain can be more vulnerable to getting inflamed, right? So, but it's always inflammation. The pull on the chain is always inflammation. So we look at, where is the inflammation coming from? And what we all have to realize, and this is basic 101 for everyone, inflammation is not bad for you. It saves your life every single day. It's essential to survival on the planet. Excess inflammation is bad for you. That's the key. So when your immune system gets activated and it's producing too much inflammation, the $1,000,000 question is, what is my immune system trying to protect me from? Because, Mrs. Patient, your immune system is just the armed forces in your body, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard. We call them IgA, IgG, IgE, IgM, cytokines. They're just different branches of the armed forces there to protect you. So when they get called up and there's a whole lot of inflammation going on, the question you have to ask, what is it trying to protect you from? And when you find that out and you stop throwing gasoline on the fire, is it gasoline or kerosene? Is it gluten or mold? When you stop throwing the gasoline on the fire, your immune system starts to calm down, and you don't pull at the chain so much, and you reverse your MS. You reverse your psoriasis. You reverse your Lyme disease. It doesn't matter what you've got. When you reduce the inflammation that's being activated, trying to protect you. So when you reverse the triggers of inflammation, your symptoms start to calm down. I don't care if you've got cancer. I don't care what you've got. You always have to learn, as a component of your treatment protocols, you always have to learn, how am I throwing gasoline on the fire? And you stop doing that. You know, there's one more thing I'll say and then pause. And that is, especially for women, they're more attuned to the aging process than men are. Most men don't talk about it. You know, there's not in their wheelhouse. Women are more aware of it. Well, aging, there's a term that came out, oh gosh, I guess about 12, 14 years ago now. It's called inflammaging. That it's excessive inflammation that accelerates the aging process. You want to reverse the aging process? Reduce the gasoline on the fire, and the result is 6 months later, you haven't seen somebody and you see him at church and, wow, what happened to you? You look great. What happened to you? This is unbelievable. And then you say, well, you know, I found out where the triggers of inflammation were coming from for me, and I reduced many of those triggers. I got gluten out of my life. I got rid of the plastic storage containers in the kitchen, and I replaced them with glass containers. I don't order coffee with the plastic lid anymore. I take my stainless steel cup to the coffee shop and say, fill it up, please. You know, I've learned, I don't use standard nail polish anymore because the phthalates, the chemicals used to mold plastic, are in your bloodstream in 4 minutes when you apply nail polish. And these phthalates are called endocrine disruptors, hormone disruptors. But there's no evidence that the amount of phthalate that leaches into your bloodstream when you apply nail polish is toxic to humans. It's too small an amount. And that's how the chemical industry got away with all of this, is that you have to prove within 24 hours the amount of chemical that you've been exposed to is toxic to humans. It's not. There's no evidence to prove that, but this stuff accumulates in your body. So give me a 5-year-old girl that paints her 10 little fingers and 10 little toes once a week for 25 years. Now she's 25, 30 years old, gets pregnant, has hopefully a healthy pregnancy, healthy delivery. But Chicago, 2016, 346 pregnant women in the 8th month of pregnancy. They collected the urine and they measured the amount of phthalates in the urine, chemicals used to mold plastic. And they put the results into fourths, the lowest, the next, the third, and the highest. And they followed the offspring of these pregnancies. So when the children turned 7 years old, they did Wechsler IQ tests on all these kids, the official IQ test. And there's not much in medicine that's all or every, but this was every single child whose mother was in the highest category of phthalates in urine in pregnancy compared to the children whose mothers were in the lowest category. Every child in the highest category, their IQ was 7 points lower. Every single one of them. Now, that doesn't mean anything to anyone until you understand that a 1-point difference in IQ is noticeable. A 7-point difference is a difference between a child working really hard, getting straight A's in school, and a child working really hard, getting straight C's in school. This child doesn't have a chance in hell of ever excelling in school because her brain never developed in utero properly. Now just go to Google and type in phthalates and neurogenesis, nerve growth. Here come the studies. And you see how it affects baby's brain development in utero when mom is high in phthalates. And mom may feel fine. She has an okay pregnancy. The birth goes well, but you don't know. The baby's brain never developed to its potential. And you read the science on this, and you go, oh my God. So what do you do about this? You get organic nail polish that doesn't have phthalates, and then you're fine. You're fine. But you have to learn all these little things to stop throwing gasoline on the fire. Okay, I'll pause now. Sorry. I get on a roll.
Hey, no, I like the roll. So no nail polish. I have, of course,
No conventional nail polish.
okay,
Not no
organic.
organic. Yeah,
So
phthalate
take
free.
your organic nail polish to the nail salon.
Yeah, yeah. Just
Okay.
Google, and I was driving in Chicago one day, and so I've got a slide. I just took a picture of the front window of this shop, phthalate-free organic nail polish. It was a nail place, but they had it right in the window. They were so
I
proud.
want to go. Where is
Yeah,
this?
yeah, on the north side of Chicago. But if you Google,
Okay.
just Google, you'll find it. You'll find places, or you'll find companies that are proud to say, hey, it's a little bit more expensive because it doesn't have these cheap chemicals in it that are going to kill you. But they accumulate over the years inside.
What about hair dye?
Hello, it's the same thing.
What do you
Makeup,
recommend for hair dye and
organic,
makeup?
organic. Just Google organic. And if you go to my book, you can fix your brain. That's the name of the book, #1 in 7
Oh,
categories on Amazon.
okay, yeah.
And for brain function. And I give you 36 different things to do.
36 things. Okay.
Yeah, here's the list of glass storage container companies. Go to Miles Kimball, go to Amazon, go to the other, I don't remember the third one. And you look at it, oh, I like those. And you order 3 round ones, 2 square ones, 1 for the pie, you pay with your credit card, you hit send, you're done. But it took an hour to do that. That's why the subtitle of the book is just 1 hour a week to the best memory, productivity, and sleep you ever had. 1 hour a week. Because what I'm going to tell you is so overwhelming, you can be immobilized into doing nothing because you don't know where to start.
Right.
Right?
Right. I
So
totally
1 hour.
understand. Anne Louise
Yeah.
Gittleman was my mentor. And so she's right in line with everything you say.
Yes, yes. So you tell your family every Tuesday night after dinner or every Sunday after services, don't bother me. I'm going to spend an hour to learn how we can get healthier for 1 hour a week. And in 6 months, the world says, wow, what happened to you? You look great. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. Just like this woman who reversed her MS. That's how she did it. She stopped throwing gasoline on the fire. There's no magic pill to take. Of course, sometimes you need supplements, but there's no magic pill to reverse disease. You have to reverse the lifestyle that contributed to the development of the disease.
So, what are some strategies for everybody out there to help reduce the environmental toxins that they have at home? And I think a lot of people don't even know what they are.
Yeah. Right. No, they don't. For example, you never turn on the dishwasher unless everybody's gone to bed. Why? Because those things are not airtight. And the dishwashing detergent you're using, read the chemicals, then just type in the name of the chemical on Google and look at all the studies that come about cancer-causing chemicals in your dishwashing fluid. And so you don't hang out in the kitchen running the dishwasher. You put it on at night when people are in bed.
I'm going to be like, don't, honey, don't turn it on.
Right. Until you get organic dishwashing detergent, then you're fine.
Wow.
And the same with shampoos. And so in our event, we have so many experts, world experts. I went to 7 countries, interviewed over 60 doctors. The experts, the world experts. Yehuda Schonfeld in Tel Aviv, Israel, is the godfather of autoimmunity. To give you a sense of this guy, medical doctors go to Tel Aviv University to get their PhD in immunology from his department. And 26 of them, there are many, many more, but 26 of them chair departments of immunology in medical schools and hospitals around the world. They're his students. This is the godfather. And he and I shared the stage in Rome last December. And he said something on stage that was just, what? And then I interviewed him on this topic, and it's part of the inflammation equation. I said, Professor Schonfeld, You mentioned this morning on stage that we are born 99% human. Yes. Now, does that mean that there's a little bit of bacteria in the baby's gut that the baby got from mom when baby was in utero? Yes. So there's maybe about 1% or so of the cells in a baby's body are bacteria, not human cells. That is correct. Okay, so you mentioned that we are born 99% human and we die 90% microbial.
What?
Yes. And many people have heard that there's 10 times more cells of bacteria in your body than human cells. That's correct. There are 10 times more cells of bacteria, most in your gut, but throughout all your tissue and your brain, there's bacteria, good bacteria that's part of the biome of that area. But we are, adults, are 90% bacteria and 10% human. So when Professor Schoenfeld made that comment, we are born 99% human and we die 90% microbial. That's like, what? And you really, that's like one of those daydreaming thoughts that you think about when you're driving down the road. What did he mean by that? Or when you're going to sleep, in my world, when I see a study that I think is paradigm shifting, it changes the way I think. It's like, what? I take the study on the bedroom ceiling. And when I go to bed at night, I go, oh yeah, oh yeah. And then sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night with an idea about that topic, and I write it down, but that's a paradigm shifting concept. So I said to him, I said, so Professor Schoenfeld, if we're born 99% human and we die 90% microbial, is this then the dance of life in being human? Is our relationship with the bacteria in our world? And he looked at me with a little sparkle in his eye and said, precisely. That you want to be healthy? The most important thing you can do is have a healthy, diverse microbiome. Lots of good guys, not too many bad guys. And it's going to take you some time to learn how to do that. You can't take a pill and do it. Sometimes taking supplements is helpful, but that's not the way to do it. You change the lifestyle that produced the result that you've got so far. So look.
Love it. So do you recommend some of the eating of fermented foods and sauerkraut and?
Every one of my patients, and what you'll hear is the science in the inflammation equation as to why, but every one of my patients knows I want 5 different types of fermented vegetables in your refrigerator. 5. I want sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, fermented beets, curry flavored, whatever you like, but 5 different types. And every day you just take a little bit of one or the other. You're inoculating with the good bacteria every day, just a little bit. And all the vegetables, when they ferment, they produce different families of the good bacteria. So you don't just eat sauerkraut. I mean, sauerkraut's good for you, but you don't just eat that. You have that sometimes, and sometimes you have kimchi. I mean, have you ever seen obese South Koreans? You don't see obese South Koreans because they eat kimchi every day since birth.
Okay.
It's the fermented vegetable.
It helps them digest, right?
Well, it helps them digest, but it creates an environment. Look, the science is really clear on this stuff. You take the poop of a obese mouse and you put that into a skinny mouse, the skinny mouse becomes obese. You take the poop of a skinny mouse and you put it in an obese mouse, the obese mouse becomes skinny.
From the microbiome?
Right. It's called a fecal transplant.
Fecal transplant.
Just Google fecal transplant and you'll see all the science. What? It's the bacteria in
It
your
sounds
gut.
nasty, but
It does, it does. But it's the bacteria, and you don't have to do
I've
that.
heard
But
it all today.
as an example to understand, look, it like for me, it's like grow up. You know, when people go, "Oh, I don't want to hear that." It's like, you want to be healthy or
My
not?
husband would not be able to be here for this conversation. I cannot talk about anything regarding that.
Yeah, yeah, understood. Look, the World Health Organization tells us that in the United States, the last 10.3 years of your life are not healthy. So your healthy lifespan is 10.3 years less than your expected lifespan. That means the last 10 years of your life are with disabilities and immobility. Is that what you want? You want to be in a nursing home in a wheelchair? You know, I mean, that's not what you want. And I know you certainly don't want that, Linda. And you model the exact opposite, which is way to go, way to go. You know, it's an extreme that you do, and we don't want everyone to do the extreme, but it's empowering to see what's possible. So if people like go in that direction a little bit and they feel better, you know, they trim down a little bit, it's great. It's great. They'll find the level of participation that works right for them. But on that topic of exercise, I'll tell you the magic number is 9,826. You take 9,826 steps per day, and according to the Journal of the American Medical Association, you reduce your risk of dementia by 51%. It doesn't matter if you've got the ApoE4 gene. Doesn't matter. You
By
walk 10,000,
51%.
51%.
And
That's
how
right.
long does it take to get those 9,826 steps if you're walking?
I, uh, I honestly don't know.
I just
Probably
was really curious.
probably a couple hours, but you know, you're walking around
Okay,
the house,
yeah, I
you're
think it's
walking
good.
around the house all day, you know, and you go out for a walk for an hour and you see, oh, I'm at 6,000 steps today. Okay, that's not bad. I feel like I got a really good, I mean, you don't have, the whole goal of our event is progress, not perfection.
But I
You know,
love to like these kind of tips you're giving, and I love to put it in that type of equation because I know that's the thing that my listeners are asking. So how many steps, how long is that going to take? How do I fit
yeah,
that in? I think
yeah,
what you said, like the walk at night, the walk in the morning. Now I have grounds to say to my husband, no, I don't work out too long.
yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah. And the goal is all these little baby steps you take. Look, when you register for this event, I give you a gift right then that day.
That's exciting.
And the gift is the full interview that I did with Fran Drescher, the nanny.
Oh, with
And
Fran. Oh, that's
yeah,
cool. Okay.
and Fran is a 24-year survivor of uterine cancer.
This is amazing.
And and she asked her oncologist, she said, she saved my life and now she's my dear friend 24 years later. But I asked her back then, why
Oh
did this
my
happen?
gosh.
She said, I don't know. I don't know. And she said, well, I'm going to find out. And so Fran wrote the book, Cancer Schmancer, and her organization, her nonprofit, is all about educating people on where cancer comes from. And it comes from all the toxic chemicals in your environment that we are being exposed to. Look, every newborn child, and many have heard this already, every newborn child has at least 180 chemicals in their umbilical cord blood at birth that aren't supposed to be there. Lead, mercury, red dye number 42, petroleum products, all of this garbage that mom has been accumulating in her body, not knowing that the shampoo that she's using that smells so nice is full of toxic chemicals. Well, there's no evidence that the amount of toxic chemicals that are in the shampoo is toxic to humans because you don't get sick within 24 hours. But
Okay.
The chemicals accumulate in your body over the years. You know, the nightstand next to your bed, if it's not solid wood, it's pressboard. Pressboard is soaked in formaldehyde, and the formaldehyde outgasses into the air for years. Well, I can't smell it. That doesn't mean anything. It's still there, and you're inhaling minute amounts of it. Well,
Wow.
there's no evidence that the amount of formaldehyde that leaches into the air and you breathe in a 24-hour period is toxic to humans. It's called the Toxic Substance Control Act. And the
What
Congress,
what about the formaldehyde in diet sodas?
well, let's put it this way.
Not to step on toes today, but
Look at your child's toothpaste. And why would you ever have a toothpaste for your child that says, warning, do not swallow? If swallowed, call National Poison Control Center. Come on. And Fran talks about this, and she does it in a way that you're just laughing your head off.
yes, I can see it.
You know, it's so silly because we just don't know. We don't know that these toxic things accumulate in our body over the years. That's what fuels, that's pulling on the chain. Your immune system, trying to protect you, is protecting you from not only the exotoxins, the stuff that's out there in the air, and the most common source of toxins is what's on the end of your fork, but also the endotoxins, what's already stored in your body. And your immune system's constantly fighting the mercury and the lead and the organic solvents and the volatile organic solvents and the heavy metals. Your immune system is constantly fighting all that stuff, producing the inflammation that's pulling on your chain, that's going to break at the weak link in your chain.
I have written so many notes.
I-
Oh my gosh. So when
I'm sorry. I just wanted
Oh.
to tie that together. So when you ask, what do you do? The interview with Fran is remarkable because she looks you in the eyes. She looks into the camera. She stops looking at me and she looks in the camera. She says, you need to treat your body like the temple that it is. Why would you ever put poison in your temple? You just don't know that it's poison. And so we're going to teach you. This event is going to teach you. And you stop putting poison in your body.
I love
little
that.
by little. And then she looked at me and she said, Dr. Tom, how do you go to my guest bathroom? And, you know, because I had used the restroom before we began. And I said, well, Fran, it's right over there. And she said, yes, but how do you get there? And then I knew what she was doing. She had the sparkle in her eye. And I said, well, Fran, one step at a time. And she started laughing, that laugh of hers. And she said, that's exactly right. And that's how you approach everything you're going to learn in this docuseries, one step at a time. You know, it's just like in my book, 1 hour a week. You just do one thing at a time. And then eventually your home is like Fran's. You walk into Fran's home and it feels like a temple in there. It's just so clean and bright. And I said, Fran, you are the only person other than me that does this. And she looked at me and I said, when we rang the doorbell and your staff greeted us and warmly, and they welcomed us in, they gave us little blue booties to put on our shoes. And she started laughing. And I said, I do the same thing in my house. I do the exact same thing because I don't want the toxic world from outside brought inside. And for those of you that don't understand and you think that's airy-fairy, your guests just walked on the sidewalk. They parked in front of your neighbor's house for a parking place. They walk on the sidewalk coming up to your front door. But your neighbors sprayed their lawn 3 days ago with weed killer, poison.
Okay.
And then they water their lawn every couple of days. So now the water gets on the sidewalk. You're walking on the sidewalk. Now the poisons are on the bottom of your shoes. You walk into the house on the carpet. Now the poisons are on the carpet. Your 6-month-old infant crawling around on the carpet, or your dog or your cat walking on the carpet now has the poisons on their hands or on their paws.
Oh, see,
You
that's
get it?
it. Yeah.
So, and Fran is so good at empowering us to accept these little baby steps. So one step at a time
So
to get
she's
there.
going to be on this.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes.
worth it right there. And you're going to be there. And who else are we going to have?
Oh my, I'm over 60. I think it's 64 world-class scientists. David Furman from the Buck Institute in Stanford, who has the contract with NASA to figure out why are the astronauts aging so quickly in space. And he figured it out, that it's inflammation. When they go up in space, they get excess inflammation from the radiation up there. And so NASA came up with the science. NASA financed the science and published the papers on houseplants. 2 6-inch houseplants in a 10 by 10 room absorbs over 74% of the toxins in the air. So you put houseplants in
That's
every
it.
bedroom.
I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And we give you the handout from NASA of which houseplants are they, you know, and so, oh, I've seen those before. Oh, those are not expensive. Oh, okay. Those are common houseplants. And so you learn all these little things and you put one foot in front of the other. Progress, not perfection.
So good. I could listen to you every day, Dr. Tom. This is so good. I have a feeling that you could tell me something new every day. This is so good today. Now, with these house plants, tell us again, what are they taking out of the air and how is that like?
They take out they take out the flame retardant chemicals that are on your sheets and your blankets and your comforters, unless they're organic. They're all soaked in flame retardant chemicals that outgas into the air for years. After 30 washings, they still outgas into the air. Well, I don't smell anything. Well, that doesn't make any difference. I mean, well, there's nothing in my air in my house. Oh, really? You ever see the sun shining through the window at that right angle and you see the dust in the air? Yeah. Well, that's what you're breathing. And it's mold and it's flame retardant chemicals. It's formaldehyde. It's fluoromethanes. It's like the dishwasher. You just don't use a dishwasher unless everyone's asleep in the bedrooms until you get organic dishwashing stuff. So you just have to learn all these little things step by step by step. Take your time, and in 6 months, the world says, "What happened to you? Wow, you look different. Have you lost weight?" Well, actually, yeah, I'm down 2 belt sizes, but I haven't counted calories. I just got rid of gluten and dairy because I found out that they were causing inflammation in my body. Wow, really? Should I do that? So I don't know. Why don't you watch the inflammation equation? Because they talk about how do you determine what foods are good for you and which ones are not, you know, right? So there's all of that.
People that say, well, what about Greek yogurt, Tom?
Yeah, if you do not have elevated antibodies to dairy, Greek yogurt is probably okay for you. But if your immune system is producing excess inflammation to dairy, you don't eat dairy. Why would you throw gasoline on the fire?
So good. What about wheat for people? Explain to people about this gluten issue because I still think people don't really get it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you read the science, it's really, really clear. But people don't care to hear about science. They're still going to believe what they want to believe anyway. But I'll tell you the science. At Harvard, Professor Alessio Fasano, professor of medicine, Harvard Medical School, professor of nutrition, Harvard School of Public Health, the chief of pediatric gastroenterology at Mass General at Harvard, the director of the Celiac Research Center at Harvard, the director of mucosal immunology at Harvard. This guy's got 5 titles. Any one title is a lifelong goal for someone at the top of their game. He's got 5. We think he's going to win the Nobel Prize. We truly do, because it was him and his team in 1997 that identified the mechanism by which this thing occurs called leaky gut. They identified that it's a protein.
Okay.
It's a protein called zonulin. And so for 25 years, they've been writing research paper after research paper. And there's 400 or 500 now that have Fasano's name on it. I stopped counting a few years ago. And, you know, there'll be 8 people on a paper, the researchers, and the last one, Alessio Fasano, meaning his stamp of approval on it. This paper he wrote himself. And, you know, he's always so careful of what he says so that he's not misquoted. But this paper he wrote himself. So this is what they're teaching at Harvard Medical School. The title of the paper says it all, and anybody can go online and download the paper. It's free online. It's a little geeky, but you read it once or twice, and then oh, okay, I understand that. The title of the paper is "All Disease Begins in the, quote, leaky gut. The role of the protein zonulin in the development of chronic inflammatory diseases." Now, 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases. But here we have a research god, you know, who's telling us all disease begins in the leaky gut. And this is what they're teaching to the new medical doctors at Harvard now. Much more detail, but it's this concept. And in that paper, he tells us that the 2 most powerful triggers activating a leaky gut are too much bad bacteria in your gut and gluten. And every single person gets leaky gut when they're exposed to gluten. And then he goes to the whole explanation as to why, you know, that we have sentries standing guard in our immune system. I like to think of the soldiers at Buckingham Palace. You know, they get those big red hats, right? They're as dormant as can be. They just stand there, but don't mess with those guys. And we have those kinds of soldiers in our intestines, watching everything that comes out of the stomach into the intestines. And if it sees anything that looks like a bug, it fires its chemical bullets. It does 2 things. First, it activates the zonulin, which is the protein that opens up the leaky gut. Now, why do you get leaky gut? Because water from the body now comes into the leaky gut and it washes out the bug with the poop. It sees a threat, it thinks it's a bug, it washes out the bug. That's why leaky gut's good for you. Excessive leaky gut is bad for you, but leaky gut itself is not bad for you. So that sentry does 2 things. First, it activates zonulin to create a leaky gut to wash out the threat. And second, it activates the major amplifier of inflammation in your gut so that your immune system starts attacking this bug, because the sentries standing guard see a bug coming into the intestines from the stomach. You know, you drop an apple on the ground, you pick it up, wipe it off and eat it. Maybe there's some bacteria on it, right? I mean, and this comes from our ancestors 10,000 years ago, before agriculture. All of our ancestors were nomads. They followed the herds. And the most important thing was food. Most important. So they find something, they sniff it, they nibble it, and then they eat it. So they had to have these sentries in your small intestine, because that's where food gets into the body, is in the small intestine. So right at the beginning of the small intestine, we have these sentries standing guard that are watching for any bugs. And if it sees a bug, 2 things: opens up the tight junctions to wash it out with the poop, leaky gut, and activates inflammation to kill the thing. at the same time. Here's the problem, and this is what they're teaching at Harvard Medical School now. Gluten is misinterpreted as a harmful component of a bug. The structure of those pieces of wheat, the peptides of wheat, look like the amino acid structure of a bad bacteria. And so your immune system is going to fight it every time it sees it to save your life. And so everyone, when they eat wheat, activates. This happens in every individual.
They're getting autoimmune then, basically, from this.
It sets you up. It's remember
Possibly, yeah.
all disease begins in the leaky gut. This is the beginning of the mechanism that causes autoimmune diseases.
Wow, that is so deep, really. I mean, because then it starts making me think about the colon and everything. So it's also another indicator of your health, a healthy colon. And so your gut is affecting all of this going on in your body, but also your gut is like your second brain. So it's making the serotonin, all of the things for that happy mood, for your not cloudy thinking, to having like sharp thinking. Like today, Dr. Tom is sharp. He remembers his facts. He could go on for another hour or two. And I know that you could. And you would give me astounding facts that I haven't heard before. And how young are you for the audience today? How young are you?
I'm 72.
Oh my gosh. See, no way. This is what we're looking for. We all want to be vital, alive, passionate, sharp, and have that quality of life. And how did you have a moment where you really turned your health around, or have you always been just on this path?
I would think, most people don't know this, but I was a baker in a health food restaurant. Now, your audience doesn't know, but I'm the guy that's been out there on stage for many, many years talking about the dangers of wheat. But I was a baker in a health food restaurant.
I make healthy treats though. Were you making healthy treats?
Oh yeah. It was a health food restaurant, and our bread was a destination bread. People drove for miles to come buy a loaf of the bread. It was really good. It was really, I'm not exaggerating. It was fabulous. But I've always been interested in common sense ways to help the body thrive, always. And that's what this event is about. It's called the Inflammation Equation, and you can find it at theinflammationequation.com/sweat. And when you go there and you register, we give you the Fran Drescher interview right away so you can watch it, because you'll be thinking for days afterwards, wow, all right, so where do I get this clean laundry detergent? And oh, well, let's take a look at my shampoo. Oh my God, I don't know what those is that English or is that Greek? All the words that are there, you don't know what they are. They're chemicals, and they're toxic chemicals. And you look at your child's toothpaste and it says, warning, do not swallow, call poison control. And you say, well, but it's okay to put this in their mouth? Really? Do you think so? You think so?
I mean, that's like telling you just a gram of mercury will pollute a whole lake, but we should put it in your mouth.
Exactly.
Such crazy stuff. I have really enjoyed this so much. And I just, again, for the audience, inflammationequation.com/sweat is the code. And it's free.
The inflammation.
Oh, theinflammationequation.com. Theinflammationequation.com/sweat. And this is free, right? For everyone. So why wouldn't you want to learn more of all this amazing stuff to just seriously not run after health after you lose it, but to prevent any kind of crazy things happening in your own body because it's so expensive. It's so expensive to try to regain your health after you lose it
Yeah.
in so
Yes.
many ways. So I've really enjoyed you today. Where can people get like more of you? Like, what's your website? Do you have a social media they can follow you?
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's all at thedr.com, thedoctor.com. Just don't spell the word doctor out. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. And I definitely want to have you on again. I really enjoyed this today. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you, Linda. Thank you.
And
Pleasure to be.
thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Sisterhood of Sweat. Let us know what resonated with you and what things are you going to try that Dr. Tom suggested. And as always, keep on keeping on, everybody. Bye, everyone.